Happy Tuesday, the 5th of September. So we ended up doing the Thru-Hike of the Enchantments on Friday the 1st, and it ended up going really well. We went with a first timer and a second timer, and this was our 5th time that we've hiked through or hiked the Enchantments. And there was a part around I logged 23 miles, and it was around mile 10, 11, sort of in the middle of, so what happens is you climb to the top of Asgard Pass, and then you get the Enchantment Lakes at the top, and they're all set up there, and there's a lot of walking around these lakes, and it's probably about 6 miles, hiking and navigating in and around the lakes, and it can be a little treacherous in some spots, and it was, because my ankle started to hurt around mile 10, about mile 9 it was hurting, because I have impingement syndrome, which is because my feet are flat, it bends down on my ankle, and my ankle joint collapses every time I take a step, and that's even with orthotics in there. And it was hurting bad, and going downhill I had to go sideways, I had to do other things I could normally, if it was my younger me, or my ankle wasn't causing me issues, I could have been able to jog down a lot of these spots and do it quickly, but unfortunately I'm getting older and things are breaking down, and my body's starting to react to the things that normally wouldn't cause me problems as a younger man, but are starting to rear their ugly head now. And that's just part of life. Maybe I'm going to go and try to see if I can get a second opinion and see if there's anything I can do for this. But like I said, around about the less than halfway, I started really hurting my ankle. And for those of you that have done the Enchantments Thru-Hike, or just hike through the Enchantments, even with the lottery pass, that's fine too. We got to the point where it was just difficult, at least for going downhill, because we had an older woman in our group, not older, but she was just older than two of us, and then my friend who was about 40. But it was to the point where it was hurting. My ankle was just bothering me, and we didn't quite. We got up Asgard in about 2 hours. Average time is about 2 hours. We probably could have bombed up that a little quicker. And then going through the lakes, we kind of took our time, because first timers want to see mountain goats. They want to take pictures and stuff. And there was actually a sheriff's helicopter flying really low to the lakes, and it looked like they weren't surveying the area for fires. It looked more like they were looking for someone, so it could have been like a search and rescue effort. So I just hope that if anyone was involved in that they got home safely, and that it was just a precautionary issue. So we get through the hikes, get to the top of Asgard. We left around 5 o'clock in the morning, or we left about 4:55 from the Stewart Lake trailhead, after dropping off our car at the bottom at Snow Lake. And then we begin at 5. We get to Kolchak Lake around 6:30ish, 7ish, because it's about 4.2 miles there. And then we go and we start climbing up Asgard around probably 7ish, 7:30ish, and then we get to the top around 9:30, and then we navigate through the Enchantments. And it's a lot easier and a lot more welcoming to hike through the Enchantment Lakes when there's a little bit of snow, because it's a little easier on the joints. It was, but when we got up there, it was, the last part of the summer. The snow had been through a lot of heat, so there was barely any snow up there, other than some of the glaciers at the bottom of Dragon Tail and areas like that. But it was just pretty dry up there, and I drank a lot of water. I drank a lot of Noon. I ate a lot of goo for products. I ate a lot of Salt tablets, I need to get some of those as well. My buddy had those, and those worked really well. And I just hydrated a lot. But I didn't get into that whole process. I kind of, like, it was new to me, the whole replenishing lost electrolytes. I didn't get into that until about, like, around mile 9 or so, 9 or 10, because it was at mile 9 or 10 is when my body started I hit a wall. When you hike and you hit a wall, it feels, you get kind of scared, especially when you've got like 12 miles left, and it's a lot of ground to cover. And I got to that point and I was like, oh, man, this is gonna be just like last year. This is bad. And it was rough, but then we get to a point where there were some mountain goats on the left, and for those of you who have been up there, you look down at Crystal Lake. Crystal Lake is beautiful because it has sort of like, it looks like a horseshoe, and there's a little island down there. But in the background, you can see the Teanaway Jolly Mountain fire. The clouds, or not the clouds, but the smoke was just really thick, and it was clear on top of the enchantments for us anyway. And if you look over, just beyond Crystal Lake, you can see the smoke starting to come over because the winds had shifted. And so the winds had shifted, and the smoke started to billow in to the lower enchantments, and we got in through that at the last part. But like I said, so we ended up getting through that, and then there's a part towards the bottom called Misery Ridge, and it lives up to its name. It's just a lot of you're losing like 3,600 feet in a certain amount of distance, and it's brutal, especially on your knees, because you're going downhill. And there's a lot of spots where you need to make sure that your hands and your feet are locked in place before you take another step, because one slip and fall, you could die. You could seriously injure yourself, seriously harm yourself, and it could jeopardize, your whole entire trip, and you could get evacuated via helicopter. All entirely possible. And so Misery Ridge, coming down from Lake Vivian, is entirely possible, and it is extremely scary, and you have to just be careful about where your feet are planted and what steps you take and where your hand grips are. You have to be precise every single time, because one slip and you're done. And that's how serious the enchantments are. And the hike itself, for a lot of people, some people were coming up in their camping stuff on their packs were for camping overnight. Their overnight packs, and they looked at us and they go, "Oh, you guys are through hiking, huh?" And we're like, "Yeah." They're like, "Wow, you guys are good luck." And it's a difficult hike. It's not something that's rarely done, but a lot of people, they do it, but it's very challenging. It's a very coming of age kind of thing. It's one of those things you do, and it's just it's like, man, it's probably the most difficult thing you'll do all year, especially for an avid outdoorsman like myself. And it was difficult. It was a challenge, and I felt pretty good going through it. And then we get to the after you get down through Misery Ridge, you come down and you get Snow Lake. And Snow Lake was extremely low this year. It was lower than it was last year, but which made they have a little land bridge that you cross, and sometimes if the water's flowing, you have to cross it with your shoes off, because there's got about 2 to 3 inches of water running over it. So you had to take your shoes off. But not this time. The water was extremely low. You could not see the temple, which is a mountain formation above Snow Lake. Beautiful mountaintop there, and you couldn't see it because the smoke was moving in from the Teanaway Lake Jolly Mountain fire. And then some of the boulder fields that you have to navigate through between Snow Lake and Nada Lake at the bottom. Nada Lake is the last lake you'll really come across through the enchantments, and the smoke was just sticking around Snow Lake at first. Nada Lake didn't have any smoke just yet, but the boulder fields that you had to go through, there was a rock slide after the snowfall, so there's a lot of boulders that had relocated and sort of shifted and been maneuvered, and so instead of just having a normal difficult footing path through the boulder fields, they've managed to smooth it out. It shifted, and so there was a lot of it was scrambling, and a lot of it was, you know, a lot like the boulder field you get at the bottom of Asgard, or even going up Mount St. Helens. And so you had to really, you know, jump around rock to rock to rock, and it was kind of difficult to navigate at some spots, but it wasn't too bad going through the boulder fields. But because of my ankle was hurting and our other group member's knee was hurting, it made things a little more difficult. So you get down past Nada Lake, and then at that point, we had 2 females and 2 males. And my buddy and I, he kind of looks at me and he says, man, I'm going to run this last part, because it's not very, you don't get many visuals. There's not many great sights to see. It's really long. It's really dry. And it's just kind of a boring hike, you know, and it's also brutal on your knees and your feet too, if you just kind of take your time through it. So we asked the girls, would you be okay with us with running ahead? And they said they were fine with it, because they were just going to take their time, because it was our other friend's first time. And so we ran the last 5 miles. We didn't make the 12-hour goal to finish the whole thing in 12 hours. That was my goal initially. I've explained that. Didn't make it because, for one thing, my ankle was really hurting. We also had a first timer, so our ascent of Asgard Pass took a little extra time. And also, it was just, you know, the boulder fields made it a little more difficult. We had to stop, take photos and stuff for the first timers. She wanted to take some photos, which is completely understandable. That's fine. And so, but we still had a chance to make 13 hours. And so we ran the last 5 miles, and I looked at my heart rate on my Garmin, and I could see, you know, where, you know, we started, because my heart rate went from, you know, pretty high, you know, to getting a good cardiovascular workout, to solid, like red and orange, all the way in the 160, 170, all the way at the 178 range. And we ran the last 5 miles, and I pushed it so hard. I have never pushed running in anything that hard before, even of all my, you know, my 5Ks and my little 7Ks, and the, you know, the Sound and Arrows run that I do every year, which is about 8 miles almost. I have never pushed myself as hard as I did the last part of this one, because the hike last year, it got me. You know, I barely got into camp or at the trailhead. I was beat up. My feet were just like slaughtered. I had so many blisters on my feet. My feet were bruised at the bottom because, you know, the bottom of my shoes, my hiking boots, which I have since retired, Vasks, great hiking boots, but for people who prefer to have a lot of padding underneath for stepping on rocks and things like that, especially in the Cascades, you get a lot of that. And it just made such a huge difference this year when I had a pair of Hoka 1-1 Tours on. Hokas have become sort of it has made hiking and running for me much more enjoyable, and because it's just so much better for my feet. So, like last year, my feet were just beat up, and I couldn't even take my shoes off until I got home, because I didn't want to see my feet. But this year, I did have blisters, because I did prepare with moleskins. It's just called Duoderm, and I did put those on my most blister-prone areas, and it ended up protecting me for most of the hike. But it did kind of, when I started running and going downhill, they kind of shifted on my skin and slid down and exposed those blister-prone areas, and so I did getting blisters on those areas, but not so bad to the point where it hindered my ability to finish the trail. And so running, I think, was probably the best option for my knees, for my ankle, and for my feet. So we ran so hard the last like 5 miles, and the last probably 3/4 of a mile, I noticed that we were really drawing into getting close to the 13-hour cutoff, and we just booked it nonstop. It was hurting. I was short of breath. I was tired. I was worn out. I was just beyond anything, and I decided to just keep pushing. I thought about my daughter. I thought about my girlfriend, the things in my life that push me, that motivate me, and I ended up, we came in at 12:59:42, and we had made it by 18 seconds, It was a great feeling. I was extremely short of breath. I was tired. I was hurting, but I did it. And, you know, taking my shoes off, covered in blisters in some areas, and I had a couple of nails that I'm probably going to lose as well, but it ended up being okay. Go. So we ended up going to, we made it just under 13 hours, and we did, you know, we went up, took my car up the road, picked up his car at Stewart Lake, and we drove back down to Snow Lakes in time, and the girls had just gotten back, so it took about an hour. And then from there, we just rode into Leavenworth, went to Gustav's, which is a normal spot to hang out for people who finish the Enchantments hike. We had what they call an Enchantment Ale, which is pretty good beer. And this year I actually had enough, I felt good enough to actually have a beer and some food, because last year I was just so deprived of electrolytes and all of the, I was just way off last year. I took like 4 sips of my beer, and I took like a bite of my burger, and that was it. But this year I demolished that burger. I drank the entire beer, and I drank a lot of water. So this year, I think this year went really well, and but I do feel bad because it is now closed. It closed 2 days ago, a day after we had finished it. They closed it because the fires jumped from Jolly Mountain all the way over to the other side, and this fire is really burning in Washington State, you know, and so you know, we have ash falling on our car right now. The skies are just completely dark. It's supposed to be extremely hot today, in the upper 90s, and because of the smoke, it's going to be a lot of humidity, and these forests are just burning down. It's just so dry, and it's scary. It really is, because for people like myself who enjoy the outdoors, who take, you know, the one thing they get to do every year is to go on these certain hikes and things like that and go enjoy the outdoors. You can't do them because a lot of them been closed off because of the forest fires. And so, you know, I hope that, look forward to, we're supposed to having rain in our forecast in the next couple of days, and I'm really looking forward to that, because we just need to get rain all over the state. Just, it's burning and it's bad, and wildfires have been, you know, we've had them at least once in the last 2 years pretty bad, but this year has been particularly bad. And for those of you that are missing out on your through hikes, or that you won lottery passes and you can't go now because they're closed, you know, it's unfortunate, but I just want everyone to be safe and to hike safely and to think about themselves and their families more than anything, because at the end of the day, we want to enjoy the outdoors, but we want to return home to our families and loved ones and friends more than anything. So it's best to just be safe, because they had rangers going up into the enchantments and evacuating everybody, getting them up, having them pack up their camping sites and moving and exiting, because they closed it. So I'm just glad we got a chance to finish. You know, my the last 2 days have been kind of rough on me physically, but I managed to get through all right. And you know, going into work today, I had to pop 2 of the blisters on my outer toes, on these ones, so I could get my boots on this morning. But you know, I had to do it because they were gonna pop anyway. I know you really love hearing about this stuff, but you know, it's I do have sort of a different kind of a physical gait when I walk, and it's slightly different than other people. So I'm prone to blisters. You know, most people's feet are like this. Mine are like this. So my foot kind of jots out a little bit. I don't know if it's a hip disorder, if it's just the way that I've been walking my entire life and it never got corrected, but that's why it's like that. But you know, I had a great time this year. The Enchantments Thru-Hike was a victory for me. I felt so good when I finished, and I made it under the goal that I had set for myself, sort of along the trail. I was able to run the last part, which I've never been able to do because I was always covered in blisters. So I believe that my performance got a whole lot better this year. My preparation was exactly what I needed. All the hard work I had put in has paid off, and I believe that we could have finished under 12 hours if it had just been my buddy and I. And maybe next year we'll do that. So we'll try it for speed next year. But I'm glad that everything went well. Everyone got back safely to their family. Toenails may have been lost, joints may be hurting, but it was an experience we won't forget, and it was beautiful up there. It was a great, wonderful experience, and I'm happy to say that, I did a lot better this year, and so it kind of keeps that feeling that I want to do it again next year. So, like this year, I wanted to do it this year because last year sucked, horrible, and I didn't want to. I was like, God, man, that trail just beat me, because you don't want to get beat by a trail, but it did, and it got the best of me because I didn't prepare for it. So now I know exactly what it takes to get through these long hikes. I know what I need to do. Like my buddy, he just takes, a couple of salt tablets, a couple bites of a granola bar, and some water, and he's good. But for me, I need to replenish a lot of my lost electrolytes and fluids, because my body just is different than his, and it sweats more. I burn a lot more energy, a lot more, stored energy and all that. So I need to replenish it, and that's just I had to learn the hard way how my body operates, and so it was a learning experience last year, and so this year, I learned my lesson, and I had made great adjustments, and it all worked out for me in the end. So I'm happy that I did it. I got some pretty decent photographs. And I got some memories to live with me for the rest of my life, and I really enjoyed going home and seeing my family. Even though it was late at night, it was nice seeing them, especially the morning after, and that makes coming home awesome. So if you guys are hiking the Enchantments, or you already did, share some of your comments below. Let me know what you thought about it, how you did it. Did you see the fire itself? Did you battle the smoke the day after? Did you do it on Saturday? So on Saturday, if you hiked on Saturday, or even, I think on Saturday they started evacuating people. So on Saturday, if you hiked it, or if you're camping out there and you got evacuated, I would love to hear your story, kind of what it was like. Because I've seen some photos, but I would love to hear how it was. So if you did, I would love to hear your comments below, and let me know how it went for you, and what your experience was like. So I appreciate you watching. Thank you very much. And Enchantments Thru-Hike 2017 is in the books. It was a success. 12 hours, 59 minutes, and 42 seconds officially. So there it is. Have a great day. I will see you on Wednesday.